Hi, I'm Edward Unthank. There's something that you've probably heard a lot of, and it's called hallucinations. Now, what does that buzzword mean within AI? What that means is that there's primarily two different ways that knowledge gets worked through and accumulated on these things. There is context. Context means that this is an AI word. This is just to say the active memory of what documents and information and data an individual AI agent is using. So I'm going to call this hard data. And this is what's actually been fed to the LLM, to the chatbot, to the agent, however you want to talk about it. And that is a primary piece, is the context. Now, there's this world where you say you want to come up with, say, show me the numbers and the user experience path, the prospect experience path that's shown by an individual person. The problem is that we come up with a world, this is AI's problem, an agentic problem right now, is hallucinations. Hallucinations are when data is pulled not from the context, not from the hard data that's referenced, but instead based on general aggregate information from the internet that is inherent in the large language model. This is what I would say is the groupthink element of AI, which is, say, whatever the internet has told it to be true, whatever data it has been trained on, which books, which internet, which documents, anything else like that. Sometimes the chatbot has an ability to lie about what the data is that you're asking, and you need to be able to watch for and identify those hallucinations. Fundamentally, the way to understand it is that when the context windows, aka all of the active memory that the chatbots are using, once that starts missing pieces, or you're doing things like larger and larger context windows, and then you're losing some data, that happens as the window of the chatbot grows, and then eventually it loses grasp of this hard data, the raw numbers that you actually care about. And when it loses that, it silently defaults to hallucinations, which is background knowledge, not specific to that specific conversation, but background to anything that the large language model has learned. Now, there are some fine hallucinations, and then there are some very problematic ones. And it's important to, as you're doing the design on these things, to understand and guard against the dangerous non-factual hallucinations. That is to say, you never guess about things that we know about, such as the amount of the activities that a prospect has been doing, about the information of what has been purchased from it, about the raw facts of a company information. You need to guard to make sure that the chatbot is not hallucinating core facts. There are some things that are positive accidents that you could say are positive hallucinations, and that is additional strategic layers of information that you haven't explicitly told the large language model, the chatbot, in order to consider. That's things like determining that the overall efficacy of social media channels might have been down or up or relatively comparatively different. That's background information. All this background information that the LLM comes baked in with, that can be useful or it can be harmful. And harmful is when it hallucinates and then you think that you're giving something that's purely factual based on primary data. And instead, you're getting primary data polluted with the background information from the chatbot that everyone is being able to feed. So that's a hallucination. It's something that you need to design for and put guardrails around to make sure that if you're using this in business, you're not coming up with garbage out. You need to make sure that there's no garbage in, and any of these hallucination layer is helpful information or flavor text as opposed to polluting the primary data that you're primarily working with. So, Edward Unthank here. I'm going deep into AI. This is based on using all these tools a lot and then seeing where LLMs actually fail at scale. Fail at scale. So hallucinations, that's one of the primary ways to do it. You need to guard against them as you're building system tools here. Because background information and knowledge can be helpful, but it can also be harmful if you're not careful about what you're doing. So Edward Unthank, follow along. I'm doing a lot of content about this, trying to educate us all into an AI world. I'll see you soon.